and welcome to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin. I'm a business growth expert who help business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. Today, I have an awesome guest. Her name is Dianna Jacobsen, and she's an accountant, business and financial strategist creating a life of freedom and success, and combining various qualifications covering accounting, financial planning, small business management, personal empowerment, coaching, and wealth mindset. Dianna Jacobsen of SHINE Business specialises in working with businesses, families, and individuals to guide them to the desired lives of freedom and success. And Dianna works with people to identify their individual and specific needs, then assist them to implement a customised and realistic action plan to achieve their goals. And Dianna has captured her unique model for success in her SHINE leadership packages, allowing individuals and business owners to access the models that work in setting higher goals and attaining them. And Dianna shares her insights with various audiences nationally and internationally, presenting at the International Leadership Association Conference and other media. Welcome, Dianna Jacobsen, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. I'm sure it's going to be a great show for everyone watching and listening today. So you're a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us more about you and your journey.
Sure. So I grew up in southern New South Wales in the Riverina area on a few thousand acres of wheat and sheep family farm. And I saw people struggling. We had droughts and floods and fires and other things. And so I thought it's about the money. And so I went into accounting and I tossed up being an agronomist or an accountant because there's more that can be done to help these families, these communities. These are little isolated communities, and it was about the money. So I went into accounting, and not that long after that, I thought it's about the people. So I've added counselling, I've added financial planning, I've added a whole lot of other modalities, because at the end of the day, it's all of those things. It's families and finance. Now, whether that's in a rural and agricultural setting or whether it's other small businesses, it all works the same. But I've built it up from there where it's really been a focus on the families and the finance and bringing those together, as opposed to looking at businesses as just numbers on a page. So it's much more holistic probably than other financial advisors and accountants might look at it. Obviously, I've got all the accounting and financial planning credentials and a whole suite of other things around that. But it was really because in my upbringing and my understanding, the families are the business, are the entity, are the enterprise, and their well-being, their livelihoods and their legacies all fit into that together.
Yeah, I love that. I love the background of that story, and it's always interesting to see where people come from, and then how out of need and necessity, and how to create something that's really relevant and helps a lot of people. So love that area now, and I think these topics here are so important about business, especially around the numbers side, where a lot of people are not as strong, right, in them. So love to delve into this further. So let's go into accounting now, and let's just talk about some of maybe the fundamental principles that start, I guess, earlier on about what every entrepreneur should know and should be focusing on with their accounting.
Sure. And again, I probably come at this a little bit differently because to me, it's not about numbers on a page. It's very much underpinned by belief systems, by what you think, speak, act, behave, bringing your best self every day, all of those sorts of things, because quantum physics tells us indisputably that we influence outcomes. But so often we look at the numbers on the page and we get that anxiety or that despair or that catastrophizing and that doom and gloom, and we actually can create the difference between something going well and something not going well. So yes, it's the numbers on the page, and yes, it's the business systems, which I certainly drill into, and we build a solid framework of that, but it has to be underpinned by the best version of yourself as well. And whether that's in business or in leadership or as your family or as yourself or health or any other goal, that's vital. And too often we miss that. It doesn't get taught in business schools. It's not mainstream like accounting speak. We don't do emotions in accounting training, but it very much is underpinned. So anyone that's got any understanding of metaphysics, quantum mechanics, any of that stuff, that's critical to getting the numbers on the page to work. On a very hands-on level, I build a framework for people that loosely I call the 4 T's: turnover, time, team, and talk. And we build sort of like pillars on that, where we're talking about cash flow, but cash flow is the scorecard, not the system. The system is your time, your team, the cost of your inputs, so what you're doing to create the cash flow, and your talk, both your marketing talk, so your external and your internal talk. And if you get those pillars correct and then marry them up with life balance, health, well-being, and your leadership, because you can't just have the quantitative, you've got to have the qualitative, and they have to work in harmony without it being rigid and just numbers on a page. And I think too often in business or any sort of business training, it's only about the numbers on the page, and we lose all that softer side of leadership or team cohesion that really is the fabric that will make or break any business system, from very small right up to very big corporations.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's very powerful with all of that there. So what I want to chat a bit more, let's delve into the mindset side, because I love the quantum physics discussion and our intentions and everything that goes back on that. And a lot of that comes through, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, you know, what we're believing, what we're focusing on there. And
I can just hear all the accountants listening, holding garlic at me at the moment. Sorry, but bear with us.
That's right. And yes, you know, the numbers are important, but especially as the business owner, right? Because some people, there's left and right brain people. If we keep it simple, right? Left brains are more logical. It's easier for the numbers. Right brain, not so much, right? They're like, what are these things? And depending on how they grew up, there could be all these beliefs that come in there that stop them from doing things. So I'd love to hear from your perspective of when you're dealing with clients, what you're hearing there, and what maybe are some good beliefs that we should be thinking about, to help us get us on the right path with our focus.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, a good point to unpack a little bit, Athin, because it's not a matter of stick a smile on your face and say everything's going to be okay. Well, inside you're going, heck, what am I going to do? But it is about looking at every situation and training ourselves. It's not the Pollyanna approach. It's not about being ridiculous and nonsensical, but it's also not about buying into this societal pattern that we have, where we have to catastrophize everything, we have to whinge and complain and make a big drama, because people like drama, and we go to barbecues and we whinge about stuff and everybody kind of stacks on, or we see the social media. It's about being different and setting your goal, focusing on it, dealing with the issues, but not buying into all the doom and gloom and catastrophizing, because we actually do have an influence, whether we believe in the woo-woo stuff or whether we see it as a scientific background or anything else, where we influence that outcome by where we sit in terms of our emotions and our energy, whether we're negative or not. So it's not just about saying, oh, we'll do positive affirmations or we'll think positively. It actually is about bringing our best self every day. So if there's an area that we're struggling with feeling good about, find something else that we can feel good about, whether it's our garden or our puppy or our motorbike or our camping trip or whatever it might be, something that we do feel good about, and then let that influence our day. Too often we go through our day going, oh, the traffic and the money and the bank and the government and the boss and the neighbour and the whatever. But when we bring ourselves down, we actually bring all our results down, because if we understand any quantum physics, it's like having an infinite number of playing fields. And we, by virtue of our outlook, our attitude, choose which playing field we're on. And we can change that at any moment in time by just deciding to have a little bit better attitude. Just pick one level up from where you might be. This isn't the Pollyanna approach, but it is about saying, well, instead of looking at everything that could go wrong, how about we be grateful for whatever we can see that's going right? We're very trained in our society to be victims and to complain, rather than to look for anything to show gratitude around. But the more that we focus on either one or the other, it works the same way, the more we get of that. So if we can look for things to be grateful for in any little instance, so it might be someone helpful at the checkout, it might be, you know, courteous drivers, it might just be that we had a nice breakfast, or we've got a good car, or whatever it might be. But the more we can be in that feeling, the more we'll create things that feed into that. And I realize that that sounds like this spiritual something, but this is scientifically backed. If you look into any of the big scientific experiments across the world, this is what they show, that we lead our results, not the other way around. If we look at our current results and going, oh, that's terrible, then we'll just keep perpetuating it. Anyone that jumps into any of particularly Bob Proctor's work, there's lots of great little diagrams and stuff with this. But if we can have faith that here's the outcome we're creating, then the real results will follow that.
Yeah, awesome. I love it, and completely agree. It's so powerful, this stuff. You know, once you start practicing it and doing it daily, right? It's a practice. It's like a habit. And then, you know, you don't expect everything to change within the day, but things build up, right, as you start to put the right signals. So I love that side of things. Now let's talk more around, I guess, the number side of things now as well. The other side, that the numbers, people were like, okay, yep, now I can maybe relate more to this one, but they're both important.
Yep.
A lot of people obviously know, most people out there will have some sort of accounting system where it's Xero, MyOb, QuickBooks or something, right? And you can bring out obviously the profit and loss and the balance sheet and the cash flow statement. We won't go too deep into those because it might be a bit too complex for people today. But I think a great topic to talk about, that's one of the most important things, is around like the budgeting and the forecasting side of business. Because I think it's not just looking at those reports, it's then how do you use them to then make decisions, right, in the business. So do you want to talk a little bit more around that side, about how we can do that in a simple way to to create more success for us?
Absolutely. So a couple of comments on this. I used to always look for mentors for many years, because you would either talk about the money or you would talk about the mindset, but they're like poles apart. So for anyone listening that's thinking that I'm really off track with this quantum physics stuff and the mindset stuff, at the end of the day, what we're doing as entrepreneurs or business owners, or even as family people, is bringing those two things and having them meet in the middle at some point. So finding mentors was always, they're usually from one school of or the other. So either from, like you say, left brain or right brain, so the numbers or the spiritual kind of woo-woo stuff. I did a lot of work with various people. Like I always followed Bob Proctor work, but I did a lot of work with Laurel Langmeyer, and she's one of the world leaders. She's on The Secret movie, and she very much combines the money and the mindset. I'm actually now her Australian financial strategist for the people that follow her globally that are in Australia. But I found that really good, because she was bringing together the practical and the mindset stuff. So when you then look at numbers on a page and we talk about budgets and so on, I teach a system that's a little bit different to that. People hate the word budget like they hate the word diet. It's fun for about an hour and then we lose all interest and forget about it. I set more like cash flow projections, saying, right, they're starting with what we've got, and I've got a lot of businesses out from bankruptcy or the brink of bankruptcy using this system. I've used it a lot for households where they've really been struggling, where instead of looking at what the shortfall is, look at what we've got and look at how we can manage that, again with that different filter. Because while we're looking at the shortfall, we're actually feeling terrible and creating and focusing more shortfall. There is a way, a system, a very practical cash book system, where we can map out what we've got, what are we working with. There is only this much in the coffers, and there's this much that's got to go out. But there's a way of taking that emotion out of it, that anxiety, mapping it out, working with what we've got. And by this forecast and projection system, if we're gradually increasing, for instance, what is either coming in or left over, depending on whether we're on fixed or discretionary income, we're actually leading that. So what I mean by that is, for anyone that's in business, and if we know our average income is X amount per year, so that's X amount per week, And there's so much of that that's out of our control because it depends what contracts we get or what customers walk in the shop or whatever. But this is where we can have a lot of influence. We can have a target that might be only a smidge above what we're currently doing. But if we can move that target up every quarter, what you'll find, as long as you just go in with the open-mindedness to allow this and not be completely closed to it, but what you'll find is each quarter that follows, the income that's coming in will follow your target. The main thing is we don't set it to be, $3 million. So straight away our belief system just shuts that down. But if we creep that up, that works. And then at the same time in this cash forecast system, we teach people to just manage what they've got. Don't add everything together and think, oh yeah, I owe X $100,000 and I'm never going to climb over it, but to break it down in digestible pieces. So we're setting people up for success, starting with really small amounts rather than just adding it all together and feeling like you're crumpling under a mountain. So I realise that's a fairly kind of grey answer to your question, but it's very different to the traditional budgets that in my experience just keep people spinning the wheels and often going in circles where they are. Yes, we need to know our numbers. Yes, we need to have boundaries. And I teach people a system that came from Laurel Langmeyer about having rules around money and rules around accounts, so it doesn't just bleed to death and we just, whatever comes in goes out again, but without it being so rigid and regimented that we just want to break out of it and we can't stick to it. It needs to have some parameters with flexibility inside of that.
Yeah, that's all good. I love it. I love, different ways of thinking, and I love that it's like a cash flow projection. I like the wording around that too. And it changes the meaning, and the cash flow is the important thing, right? When you
the main thing with that, sorry, Athin, is that it changes you from being to be in control of your money rather than your money being in control of you, which is what most people experience. Most people are very disempowered by money because the bills come in, the paycheck is what it is, and they feel disempowered. This is a way of actually becoming empowered regardless of what your circumstances are or what your starting point is.
Yeah, love that. Awesome stuff. Lead up and take control of the situation. So awesome stuff there. Let's talk a bit more around financial planning now, because I think this is important, and maybe some of the mistakes. I think we learn a lot from failures and mistakes, right, from people these days, from what you hear rather than always the good news story. So do you want to maybe hear about? You talked about like turning people around from bankruptcy and other things like that. Maybe some stories about some common mistakes around people's financial planning and how we can avoid them as well.
Yeah, look, off the top of my head, I think the first one would be to add things together and make them into big numbers, whether that's money in or money out. People will add up all of their debts, whether it's creditors or mortgages or credit cards or whatever, and say, I need this much to get out of strife. And then they'll say, well, I'll go and get a loan for this much and I'll fully borrow against my house or whatever it might be. So it just means that you're dealing in really big numbers that are very overwhelming. Instead of breaking things down further to that cash flow projection conversation into, we've got these components here, here's how we can manage each one in smaller pieces. And I literally work with people, which might be $5 a week towards various things, but it's more about keeping the momentum going and breaking things down rather than saying, I need X amount to pay the whole lot off. And that might even be just paying your electricity bill at $20 a week rather than waiting until you've got the $500, because at least there's something that's manageable without scalping your cash flow. What we tend to do is we have this boom or bust cycle, and that's how we've always been taught to do it, put the money aside and then pay it all off. But for anyone that there's insufficient funds to do that, you're always in this state of lack and scarcity and anxiety. Instead, just chip away at $5 a week or something like that towards those particular debts to keep the momentum going, to show good faith, but to move yourself out of that anxiety and just know I'm doing something, and then remove the emotion from it. And not to keep doing this boom and bust. Don't change it every week. Just set it on an amount and forget about it and focus on what you can do. So I think the biggest problem is that old way of thinking that I've got to have all of the amount and I've got to pay it in full all the time. And also that that very ingrained thinking about that debt is bad. And granted, a lot of debt is bad if it's not used for the right things or if it's not the right proportionate amount. But a lot of us got very ingrained or indoctrinated in the 80s when the interest rates went really high, and when we had parents that were struggling with mortgages or other debt at 20% interest. So there's a lot of belief that you can't have any debt. But if we've managed that and factored it in carefully, worked with our accountant to make sure we're talking about what I call good debt, so tax deductible debt that's working on leverage or an appreciating asset, as opposed to consumer debt for holidays or credit cards or shoes, then it has its place. So it's about managing cash flow in conjunction with debt, but getting rid of this boom and bust cycle where every time money comes in, we spend it all and we put ourselves back to zero. So that throws ourselves emotionally continually back to that anxious feeling, which, go back to the quantum physics, I'm sorry, but it's like a magnet and it will just keep drawing more of the same. So instead of this hills and valleys kind of cash flow graph, what we want to be doing is creating this gentle undulation where there's a certain fixed amounts going out to all these different things each week of much smaller amounts that are workable, and we are back in control of that rather than just feeling like it's all out of our hands.
Yeah, I love that. Breaking it down, which is always key in so many different areas of business, but especially, with the numbers as well. Let's get into business strategic planning now. I know it's a big thing that you do as well. I think is extremely important too. So what should we be thinking about? Like when we're putting this big strategic plan together, what should we be putting in there to make sure that, we can implement it and got the highest chance of success?
Yeah, I think too often in business, and particularly with accounting, people see that as a necessary evil. It's something they need to do for the tax office. They've got to get their accounting and their tax done somewhere in the 10 months or so following the end of the financial year. It's just one of those horrible obligatory chores, and they don't see any value in that. And yes, we have all of this compliance work that we need to do, but what I'd be suggesting to people is that you know your numbers. So whether you use Xero or MyOb or whatever you use for your business, or even just to have an understanding of your household ins and outs so that you can make sensible decisions. And that's where those money rules and so on come in and fit into that. So that, yes, you're getting your obligatory tax stuff done, but it's not just a necessary evil. It's actually a tool that you can use to understand your numbers and make decisions. And that doesn't become everything that you do with your numbers. It's there and it's needed, but it's telling you what you did up till the 30th of June last year. So other than being an indicator, it's not there as a leading indicator. It's not something that you can make a decision with. What we need to be doing is, again, that forecasting, not just on numbers, but on where we want to take our business or our goals or our household or our other endeavors that we're doing, so that we've actually got the focus on what we want to achieve rather than on what we are not achieving or where we feel like we're falling down. Because only by being clear and focused and targeted on where we're heading can the results follow that, and we can make decisions and take steps towards that. So with the strategic planning, yes, we need the numbers. Yes, we need all the compulsory reporting and lodgements and so on. But that should be used as part of a much bigger picture, as just that's telling us the scorecard for last year. How do we want the result to look in 12 months ahead? And then breaking down again into smaller pieces to work towards that, so that each month or each week we've got some definable steps to take.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Really powerful there. And I think a lot of people, where they fall down, right, in this sort of process that I see, is that they can set up this plan and do it, but then are they implementing, are they tracking, right, and everything there and along the journey? It's nice to create this lovely document, but actually, is it actually happening? So do you want to maybe talk about some tips there on how to then actually make sure that it is, part of your process and you're tracking it and then making decisions, from it throughout the year as well?
The best business plan is a picture. So we put together these wonderful pages of documents of business plans and spreadsheets and all this stuff if we have to give that to a bank. It goes in the filing cabinet, it falls down the back of the drawer, it's valid for one day only, and then we forget it exists and we never look at it again. So that's all peachy. It got us the loan from the bank or whatever we needed. But I work in pictures and diagrams when I work with people, because that's a lot more fluid, it's a lot more real and relevant and engaging, let's be honest. I mean, pages of numbers is pretty boring even for the best of us. Vision boards, I think, are critical, because we think in pictures, we think in colours and movement and emotion and things that are engaging. So whether it's one or a series of vision boards, pin-up boards, things like that, I'm still more of a fan of the tactile version than the computer version, because it has a lot more neurological engagement. But if you've got pin-up boards that you can be putting pictures or words or targets or dates or something, that's a whole heap more engaging business plan. And I kid you not, subconsciously we get a whole heap more into it. It hits us either overtly or covertly every time we walk past wherever it's hanging. And our decisions then work towards that. So then when we're working towards, you know, the boring stuff, like the financial part, it's not about the numbers on the page. It's not about who's going to do the vacuuming or mow the lawns or whatever. It's about what are we working towards. Within the hierarchy then, I often do a couple of diagrams, like what I call a sunshine diagram, where essentially what's your expertise, whether you're the leader in your business or you're a professional or your household, whatever your role is, what brings in the dollars. So people get very hung up being busy, and we get very distracted by the busyness, but often it's not the busyness that we're writing the invoices for. So people say, I'm really busy, but I'm not making any money. Okay, let's have a look. They're busy doing all the wrong things. I'm going to save 20 bucks an hour and go and do my own mail and banking and mow my lawn and do this and do that. If we can find chunks of tasks, so not necessarily just employ someone and have to pay a big wage, but chunks of tasks that can be outsourced or delegated or allocated or contracted or anything like that, so that we are concentrating on what we make the money for and the other stuff's happening. So it's a nice network of cohesion, because everybody needs every other part to work. My housekeeper's motto is don't let the house win. I'm very happy for her to be doing whatever it is that she does to make that tick along. I don't need to micromanage and know the details. So it works the same in different areas. I've got a great team of people professionally in their different skill sets. I can't do what they do and they can't do what I do, and it all works together. So I think the important part with the strategic planning is work out what your strength is. That way you're also not getting bogged down on either wasting time or trying to drag yourself grudgingly to do the tasks that are not your thing. We all have strengths, our weaknesses. Rather than saying work on your weaknesses, delegate them to somebody that wants to be doing that thing. And that way you don't struggle to find the energy, you don't struggle to get out of bed and jump into it, you don't struggle to do the doing, and the days go fast because you're doing stuff that you love, that's really engaging, rather than all this peripheral stuff that is just noise and doesn't really support the greater cause.
Yeah, love that. Really great points. And I guess one thing to add, I'd like to know your thoughts on is, I guess the difference between the short term and the long term, right? In terms of this as well, because I guess some people can be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do in 10 years. And then they're not doing much now. Or maybe they're just thinking in the next year and they're not thinking big enough or something like that potentially as well. So I'd love to hear on like your thoughts around that to make sure we're getting, I guess, a good balance or something there so that we can still take action now, but then, you know, stretch ourselves as well going forward.
Yep. A couple of the diagrams that I do for that, one is I say to people, imagine like you've got a big sifter and we have tasks that are the big rocks, the small rocks, and the sand. So the sand and all that are all those emails and sweeping the floor and mowing the lawn and all the noise that I talked about. So you're sifting that out first. And then you've got the smaller rocks and the big ones. And the idea is that you keep working towards the stuff that you really love to do. And you check in with that at least every year, that you're still liking what you're doing, because otherwise your business, my business has certainly evolved and morphed in a few different directions as I've stepped more into specialised fields. So particularly all the business strategic planning and the farm succession planning are my areas of specialty, along with mainstream, you know, accounting, financial planning, and so on. but that's just because I started off doing everything and then picked more and more of what I like to do and put on more people that did like the bookkeeping or the other sort of support services within that. So on a page, I suggest to people draw a big box on a page and a little box in the middle. And in the big box, you put all the things that you'll be doing. Outside of the box, you'll put the stuff that you really don't want to be doing so that you can gradually be delegating or outsourcing. And the little box in the middle would be, what's your super, super ideal? And I hand out magic wands when I work with people because people get so caught up in the all the reasons, excuses, all the reality of why they can't achieve what they want. So I hand out magic wands and say, if you didn't put any of those limitations or beliefs or excuses or whatever in the way, what would you be doing? What would this look like? And therefore they can work towards that little box in the middle that this is the stuff I really love to do. I really love to be working with people to overcome whatever challenges. I really love to be doing this, this, this. The bigger box around it is the other stuff that for now I keep on doing, but I can gradually share. And outside of the box is the stuff that I procrastinate, I put it off, I'm just not going to get around to it. I say I'm going to do it, but I never do. I always find something better to do. So just delegate that right from the start. That way you're continually checking in that you're doing the stuff that brings the most value, not only to other people, but also to yourself, that you're enjoying doing it, because then you just get this great synergy within your team, within your customer base, and just within your own well-being and enjoyment.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. So powerful there. And let's move over to leadership now. I know you're big on leadership and, you know, you've got Shine at Leadership as well. I think leadership means a lot of different things to different people. So I'd love to hear I guess, how you define it and how we can just generally be, you know, a better leader in what we do.
Sure. So Shine at Leadership, which is our other company, came about at the start of 2021. So it was my 50th birthday and we're in COVID, but I wanted to do something that was kind of a pay it forward or pay it back even. I work predominantly in rural area. I still have a cattle farm. Our accounting firm is in Northeast Victoria. I work nationally, but I work predominantly with either agribusiness or small rural business, whether that's retail, hospitality, or anything else. So family-based businesses. We had an extended drought from 2017 through till about 2020. And a lot of families really suffered, not just farming families, but families in small communities and larger rural communities, because everything flowed on. And there was an awful lot of hardship. There were people just walking away from farms, walking away from businesses, walking away from houses. They just had nothing left, and they had nothing left to give within themselves. And you know, we had the Royal Commission into banking early in that period. And personally, I saw that do more damage than the drought, because suddenly people that were okay with the infrastructure in their banks, suddenly that got changed and they were not okay and they didn't have that anymore. And it was just a tragic time. We saw some real heart-wrenching things. And I thought it would be so great to have a bucket of money, you know, $100,000, I'm not talking millions, where we could just help some of these people. I heard afterwards of people, one family lost their farm for a shortfall of $30,000 and they lost 5 generations of everything because they couldn't come up with any more. Lots of stories like that. So I thought, what can I do that can create something from nothing? You know, there's nothing more I can do. And accounting work, obviously you're charging clients. So, you're not trying to charge the wrong people who don't have anything anyway. So I launched Shine at Leadership because I've done, as I said, years and years and years of different modalities, different training, all sorts of different philosophies and mindsets and ideologies and a whole raft of things. And I thought I'll put together a 12-month program that people would subscribe to. That's an online program, and all of the funds from that go towards Shine at Leadership, which I then just use. We're not a charity, we're not a not-for-profit. Essentially, I pay the tax on it and then I just give it away. And we've saved a couple of family farms. One was for a shortfall of $9,000. The mum had left, the dad was on his own with kids and elderly parents, and there was nothing left to give any of the creditors. They were trying to buy fodder for their cattle the whole time. You know, it was just tragic. And it got to the point where one of the suppliers was going to foreclose for a shortfall of $9,000, and we could do that. We did a lot of vouchers for groceries, kids' school needs, swimming lessons, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So Shine at Leadership was to be a 12-month program. We're just launching into year 4 because everyone that's joined it, and it's an online digital forum, has just loved it, and they keep paying for it, and they keep saying, can we keep going? Can we have more content? So in that context, leadership, coming to your question, is just about showing up, being the best version of yourself every day, and extending yourself a little bit in, you know, not necessarily in academic fields or business fields or money, but just learning a little bit more. We've covered all sorts of things. They all feed into what leadership is, because they all feed into what makes us tick and how can we just be that better version of ourselves, or run our business or our family or our household or our own personal development a little bit more. There's the interaction. We have a discussion group, so there's a lot of conversations there that extend people beyond what they probably would have in their normal social groups. And there's still the contribution for the content. Everything that we've done to date has been recorded. So there's an online hub where anyone that joins up just get access to, at the moment, 3 years worth of 40 lessons, 40 workshops a year. So there's an enormous amount of content there. And I just keep researching and putting composite lessons and workshops together each week and adding that to that hub. So in that context, to me, leadership is just, and my key takeaway for any leadership, so I spoke on this in England last year, and I presented a paper on it electronically through Vancouver and other ones that I've written, is leadership is not the coming in from the top and telling people what you should do or throwing a lot of money at a cause. It's each of us turning up in whatever our little corner of the world is and doing the best we can each day, with coming back to that attitude that I talked about, with that energy of not Pollyanna, not being nonsensical, not being ridiculous, but just the best that we can manage each day, because that ripples out and it makes a difference to our day, and it makes a difference to everybody else that we encounter, or even anyone that sees us just be helpful. We don't have to all run around, you know, being ridiculous. But for me to come to work in a bad mood affects everybody that I work with. The people that I speak to on the phone would pick that up, even just through energy, not necessarily through what I said. My staff, my customers, all the people that you interact with, you know, at the shop or the lunch place or whatever. If you come to any place in life just with a little bit better version of yourself, and just take the time to say, how's your day? Or hope you have a nice day, or, you know, that colour looks great on you, or just something, thank you for your service. That makes them feel better, and that ripples out. This is what true leadership is. It's just doing those tiny little things every day, being grateful for the things that are just in that quiet place inside us that we might have noticed through the day without making a big noise about it. It could be, you know, a pretty bird or tree or flower, or it could be someone helpful, or it could just be that we're grateful for the life that we have, and that we just send those nice ripples out among people in our day. This is what leadership is, and this is, I have without a doubt believe, what will make a difference through our communities, and on a much bigger level than thinking that someone's going to come in, you know, like the Bill Gateses of the world and salvage the situation. That's great, but there's not a lot of us that can do that. Whereas all of us can come in and lead just by being the best version of ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. Best version of ourselves, completely agree. And what a great cause, you know, to give back and just so these little things can make a big difference, you know, to a lot of people's lives. So love that. Yeah, you shared so much value with us today, Dianna. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
To make a big difference, it doesn't have to be hard. Financially, it can be a couple of bucks a week that you put somewhere into what I call a wealth account. and you have rules around it. You just leave it there. You might have a cause marked out for it, like a holiday or something, but you just don't touch it. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. And the other thing is just those little acts. It's not that we have to come in and be able to do big altruistic acts, but if we can just turn up and be nice to the best of our ability, and we all have good days and not so good days, but just turn up and make those little differences to our day and to other people's day, that makes more of a difference than we can ever see or measure.
Yeah, I completely agree. So powerful with everything there. So yeah, we connected through our networks. Wanted to about your awesome journey from being an accountant, financial planner, business and financial strategist. Amazing woman. Very knowledgeable and a lot of great value you've shared. And I'm sure you continue to help businesses, families, and individuals to guide them to their desired lives of freedom and success. And very grateful that we connected. Look forward to working with you. So Dianna, how can people find you and get in contact with you?
Sure. So we've got websites for Shine at Business and also Shine at Leadership. The Facebook pages, particularly Shine at Business, we usually put pictures of our road trips and things like that, so that just keeps you up to date. I'm always happy to have a phone chat or a Zoom chat to give people some guidance with no charge, no strings attached, because I think it's really critical that people have access to good, practical, useful information that they can then go and implement and add, what I call tools to their toolkit. So through any of those channels, the website inquiry or the Facebook Messenger, you can make contact with me. I'm always happy to have a chat and just answer your particular questions or challenges and get people going in the right direction.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. So definitely check out Dianna in any of those methods and reach out, and I'm sure she can help you, if that's what you feel is the right next step for you. So, and it's been a pleasure, Dianna. Thank you for interviewing me today. Thanks a lot for being on my show.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.